Hello and welcome back, everybody, to Vector Club Weekly, the show where three fine gentlemen and apparently one fine lady bring you the best in vectoring news and reviews. So apparently I'm a girl. Apparently everybody thinks I'm a girl.
Easy to mistake.
Yeah.
No. That's wrong.
You're a pretty lady, it's okay.
For the record, welcome to Vector Club Weekly. My name is Rainbow Plasma, and regardless of what that name is, I am a guy.
He's lying.
And today I'm joined by the three fine gentlemen. We have Burned.
Hello.
We have Flutter Guy.
Hi there.
And finally, we have our sexy Australian, Mr. Pinky Dash.
That's me, last but not least.
Fantastic. Alright, so hopefully you guys will be able to recognize our voices from last week and previous weeks and stuff like that, so we can just kind of get on the road here, hit the ground running, and head right into our news section. And strangely enough, the first bit of news is just a little bit of thank you guys for the support that you guys gave us last week for our first episode. That was awesome to see. As the person who's kind of organized and edited and submitted the podcast, it was really, really awesome to see all the feedback you guys gave. Some really great constructive criticisms. We had a poll go up that I think DarCow put up, or Zoo put up, or one of the other group managers. And it was like over 75% of people were like, yeah, we want to see more of this, or like, yeah, we'd watch this. So that's really great support. Thank you guys, and keep it up, because we plan on keeping it up.
I didn't want to hear more.
So that's just a bit of something. We have actual news this week. Great. So Flutter Guy, why don't you start us off?
All right. This is kind of a continuation on what I talked about last week, but our background projects are still very much underway. Actually, our first background project was finished a little while ago, and I can tell you it looks amazing. Congrats to all those who contributed to it, and you did an awesome job.
Heyo, I did.
Yep. Also, way to not use Inkscape.
Oh, shut up. We mentioned last week, but use Inkscape if you're going to do the group background projects. I learned that the hard way.
Yep. Yeah, the second background project is also underway, 17 out of 20 parts done, and it is looking pretty awesome. I know I helped contribute to that, so hopefully my part looks okay. And actually, DarCow is putting out another request for people to submit backgrounds that they want to see vectored, so it's basically another round of background collaboration. So it has been successful in the past, so hopefully the second round will be awesome as well.
I'm not sure if he's planning to do more of those, because he was talking about the fact that he might have just want to do one or two. But again, if you guys give support, then I'm sure DarCow might just keep doing this.
Yep. And actually, if you applied last time, but your vectors weren't really up to what we were looking for, feel free to try again this time, because I'm sure you've improved, and we're always looking for group members to help out.
Cool. All right.
As of 2 days ago, it was Sibsy's birthday. And if you don't know who that is, Sibsy is the lead storyboard artist of My Little Pony, and she's done a lot of awesome stuff. She was on one of my favorite cartoons ever. She was also worked on boarding for Ed, Edd n Eddy and Kid vs. Cat, Martha Speaks. She's awesome, but she's also really, really active on DeviantArt and with the community and people who make her awesome stuff. She's commented on quite a few vectors that people have made for her, and we have a few vectors in our gallery that people have even made her for her birthday. And one of my favorite things made for her was an animation of her working on her Subaru with Lowrider playing in the background and her working on it, her OC. And that's really fun. Her birthday has just exploded with submissions and community created stuff, and she's awesome. Go wish her
I can't stop watching that animation.
Yeah, I was about to say it's going to be a giant pain in the butt to put that in the video.
Do it anyway.
The background music just makes it.
Yeah.
You gotta make sure you get that.
How am I going to put the background music in? You guys are a pain. Editing this is going to be a nightmare.
Am I the last bit? Okay, last again. Anyway, so our feature artist has been changed again for this week. This week it is Upata, or I don't know, Up One Ter, however he pronounces it. The reason why I chose this guy is because he does a lot of original style line art, which is awesome. He's also done a couple of really awesome vectors that I've liked. And they're all in the group, which is also awesome. So what you'll see them come up on your screen now, but the first one I'm looking at here is his Derpy dressed in a Easter bunny suit with ears on and carrying a basket of eggs and a muffin. It's adorable. Yeah, that's all I really have to say. It's just adorable. There's also this Fluttershy one. As you can tell, original style line art, but no fills or anything. And this guy is definitely the best that I've seen at doing that.
He's done a lot of cool line art.
Yeah, he's done a lot of it.
There's a really cool Luna one as well.
It's really cool. I have tried, but I've got nowhere near as good as this guy has. And this Vinyl Scratch one, it's like a banner wallpaper sort of thing. It's awesome. Like, just everything this guy does is awesome.
I think Pinky Dash has kind of a wing boner for this guy. I came in this week and he was like, "So you doing a featured artist?" I was like, "No." He's like, "Well, I've got someone."
I suggested it a while ago, but my suggestion's gone unheard.
Oh,
so.
Well, not this week.
Sweet.
Yeah, we like to look at a lot of show accurate stuff in our group, but definitely some of the best stuff out there is original style, line arts, and stuff like that. So
that's why we have that folder.
People are pretty amazing. Yeah, the original style folder is just chock full of amazing stuff.
Yeah, especially some of the shading and stuff is pretty awesome.
Someone brought up a question with me earlier, was about like what's our group actually for, and he was talking about how like he thought it was a place where we can like for people to show off like the vectors they've made, and what I wanted to like try to convey to him was that our group is more of a place for people to be able to, like a resource for the community, you know what I mean? It's more of a place where people can go to find show accurate vectors where people who want to help the community can help, and that's what we try to encourage our members to do.
Yeah, and then that original style folder is more of like the showing off the people who have more talent. That's a really horrible thing to say. Let me take that back.
Wow. Yeah.
Not more talent, but you get what I mean. That's more of a showing off folder compared to like the other ones, which are more of a resource.
Well, even that, like people use his alternate line art. I've seen people make those into stickers and things and put them on sides of cars.
Yeah, that's pretty cool.
Yeah. So, good stuff from this week's featured artist. Once again, we'll be doing this every single week, so look forward to that. And let's move on to our biggest section of the entire show, which is vector critiques, which we got so many people giving us vectors to critique. Awesome. I was expecting maybe one or two, and we might have to pull someone from here. But, man, we got so many good ones. So, the very first one is from Are You Jealous? And it's this OC pony that you see on the screen right now. So, without further ado, let's get down to the critiquing. Anyone see anything in particular?
Her tail. Up the top of the screen, her tail. There's a few little bits where the stroke could be more even. It's all wobbly in a few places. It's pretty much consistent around the place. Mostly in the mane though. The outline, the stroke of her body and wings is fine, and her mane. But down the bottom, the bit of a mane that hangs down has got the same problem.
I see a common problem a lot of the times when you do, like if you look at the tail flip on the right side of the tail, the outline is very hard to match up with the fill because they do them separately and it's very hard to get the right angle for that. All it takes is a lot of tweaking and like pretty good eye. So that's a bit hard to do first time, but that's more of an experience thing. So the more experience you get, the more you can do those tail flips correctly with the
that's
fill.
Right. I'd say this is probably done in Photoshop as well, and it's fairly hard to get right in Photoshop. Starting off, it took me ages to be able to get it right.
Yeah, spirals and those harsh curves are very, very hard in Photoshop.
Sweetie Belle's curves. Oh.
I will say about those corners, that's one thing that I see a lot of. You should really try and match the inside edge and the outside edge of your stroke. So like in the corners in her tail, just to kind of keep on topic. Just where there's a point, make sure there's a point on the other side of the tail.
But a good thing that I try to do, especially in Photoshop, is you can make a shape like a circle that you know what you want your stroke to be, that thickness, and you make a little circle inside of that stroke, and then you can move that circle to your other strokes and see if they're the right thickness or not.
That's also a good idea.
And if it's bigger or smaller than the circle, clearly you gotta like make it bigger, smaller. I've done that a couple times.
Oh, that's pretty neat.
I'm noticing in the very front of her like mane, the part that's hanging down on the right side of her face, you can see a couple of things when it flips back in. So when the curve flips out and then it flips back in, the way it connects back to the hair is really weird. So on the left side, you've got like a round curve, which I'm not sure what it's really doing there. That should be pointed, coming in and tapering. And on the right side, that tapers a bit weirdly. It should come in. And
There's a couple that are rounded on the end, but a lot of the strokes that are supposed to be pointed are pointed. It's just that little spot in the hair, and then also in the tail, where at the bottom part of the top tail, right there, the first little curly bit, it's a little round right there. It could taper.
Just above the wing.
yeah. So there's a couple there that make sure, all those lines should taper.
And it looks like they're actually two separate shapes. Like you could easily make that part of the tail a single shape. And while we're on the topic of shapes, you also want to remember when doing things like legs and body outlines to make them multiple shapes and not just a single shape. But with things like the tail, you'd want it to be one solid outline.
Right, we've got a pretty good diagram describing. It's hard to explain, but basically, if you're going to make like a belly and a leg, then the leg should be a separate shape from the belly. They shouldn't connect together.
Each body part should be separate.
Yep. Overall, really nice job on this OC though. The colors work great.
I believe this one is actually in our group right now. So,
The color scheme on this one is great.
yeah.
It's not too bright, not too in your face. More of a dull, sort of chilled out.
It's got a bit
awesome.
of that. It's got a bit of what we talked about last week with the OC coloring, but for the most part, I think it did kind of nail down. Like that's the brightest you could go with blue. But still
I don't
fine.
think it's really a problem. But like the hooves are kind of floating. But I think that's because the reference is taken from Rainbow Dash on a cloud. Am I right? So there's supposed to be a cloud behind the hooves.
Oh, could be.
Somebody in the comments wanted us to talk about eyes, and that's actually a pretty good thing to bring up because eyes can be quite complex. They're probably the most complex single object on a pony. So
For you, maybe.
I just
It's so difficult. I can't figure it out.
it is actually hard, so shut up. There's a couple of things that I noticed in the eye that are kind of common errors. A very hard thing to tell, especially with what I assume is mostly an original vector here, not quite a show trace, is seeing things like eye highlights. So the eye highlights here are kind of pointed up, and I'm not sure if those are correct.
Well,
it's hard to tell.
If I may, the show likes to use eye accents to show direction and what they're looking. That's why they'll shift from side to side depending on what angle their head's at. Because it's kind of like where the light hits the iris. So if she's looking down, her eyes are tilted down. Sometimes they'll tilt the irises up really high right that. But there's usually a good rule of thumb that it's supposed to be right below a 90-degree angle at like 40 degrees or something. But for this, like you'd have to check out the reference if there is one. But they do seem almost a little bit high. But if she is trying to look down and that's what you're trying to convey, the eye accents kind of help show that.
I would move them slightly around to the left. Just slightly. Just so the brown is underneath the side of the eye. The light brown is just under the side of the eye.
For this one, you could also put them on, instead of them being on the same side, normally they're on the same side when they're looking left or right. For this, you would want them to be mirrored because you're looking directly at the face. So I think that's what the problem is they're both on my left. They should both be one should be on the right and then one should be on the left.
Also, you have the eye spots. One of you guys can probably point this out because I don't know this off the top of my head, but do eye spots turn sideways like that?
Yeah.
Even if the pony's looking down?
Yep.
Yeah.
Yep. That's
Okay.
fine.
Well, then that's just me. Never mind.
You'd always just got to make sure they're always like reflected like that. They're not opposite.
Yeah, the reflections always mirror. They're always the
That's
same.
probably the thing that's getting me about the eye highlights is the fact that the one on the right should be flipped colors and moved over to the right. Other than that one looks good, doesn't it?
Yeah.
This one looks damn good. A lot of the submissions we got were good this week.
Yeah, we're definitely looking for vectors that we can actually find a few things to critique on them. Someone submitted, a user by the name Critchley B, submitted a caked Applejack vector, and I mean it was awesome. We couldn't find a thing wrong with it. There was like a bit of a thin stroke on the top of the head, and then a little fill error by the ear, but other than that, everything on it was awesome. And that user is awesome. I see him on the My Little Pony vector subreddit a lot, and he does a lot of critiques, and that's really good to see. So shout out to him. You're awesome. Keep it up.
Wow, everyone's popping wing boners today. So anyways, yeah, you guys have been submitting a lot of great stuff, so make sure when you're submitting stuff that it's something that we can actually critique. Chances are, if it's already in the group itself, then you're probably good to go, and you don't need an extra round of critiquing. It's usually people who haven't gotten into the group yet, or haven't gotten their submission into the group, that could use the critique. But, anyone's open.
Yeah.
Oh, I just spotted something. Right by the base of the tail, there's a fill error. So, right where the brown meets the lighter blue. So, never mind.
Moving on.
There's one fill error, it's not bad. Alright, so the second one we've got here is a rarity vector, and this is from, let me just pull it up really quickly here. This is from Red Panda Wah. Red Panda Wah? It's a pretty good looking vector of rarity here, but do you guys see anything right off the bat?
Biggest thing is uneven strokes. That's the first thing I can tell. Her foreground back leg is way thicker than anything else in the vector. The top of her back is a bit too thick as well.
Yeah, if you look at the top of her mane and compare it to the bottom curl of her mane in front of her nose, they're completely different thicknesses, and the top of her skull in comparison to her mane or her leg.
In this one, I would say for a reference for a proper thickness, I would say her chest would be probably a good thickness.
Yeah.
Yep.
And Bernd mentioned the trick before with the circles, where you can take, if you're using fills, which is where you trace both sides, and it's harder to do, but it's
which is what you do in Photoshop.
If I'm actually inferring this, this artist uses Adobe Illustrator. I critiqued one of her vectors earlier, and what I think she's using the width or the line width tool method. So she's making a path, and she's stroking it in Adobe, and then she's adjusting the path size with the line width tool. I don't know if she's doing that for the whole path. I didn't take too long of a look, but she submitted a really good Applejack vector, and it was awesome. But there was two parts on the legs that were using the line width tool, and they were tapered with the line width tool. So they came to a point right in the middle when the point should be on the left side, and then the other one should be on the right side. It's kind of hard to explain. So if this is made in the same...
I got this, because I'm the only person here who actually does Illustrator. All of you guys use other programs, so as a person who uses Illustrator for vectoring, let me give you a tip. When you're selecting the stroke tool, and you've got a little box over to the right that's called stroke, where you can see all your weight, and you can see, like, say, this one by the head is 30 points, and that's how thick it is. You just use that number for the rest of the other stuff. And when you're using the stroke width tool, obviously you can mess around with stuff, taper points and stuff like that. But as a whole, you should keep all of your stuff. You have that resource to be able to keep it as 30 points or whatever it is. Flutter Guy, you were mentioning something about the eye shadow?
That wasn't me, but...
Okay, never mind.
Yeah, the eyeshadow is kind of coming into the front of her eye, when it should be in line with the front of her eye. So the eye actually looks a little...
it looks a little flat at the front.
Yeah. So probably... I'd say the shadow is probably where you want your eye to be. So probably just move out the eye to meet where that is.
I think was a good tip is if you're making Rarity's eyes or Twilight's eyes, mainly Rarity's eyes, you make the eyeshadow where you want it first, and then you use that for the eye white. And then when you make the eye white, you would edit the path to where her eyebrow is going to be, and then use that as your clipping mask, clipping path, whatever. Whatever program. Because that way you have the eyeshadow perfect, and then you just add a point there, and then you can have your eye white so everything stays aligned.
While we're talking about the eyes, I just noticed on the separate eyelashes, so the ones that are connected to her eyeball, there's a little stroke error there. You didn't quite tuck the top one underneath the eyeball, so make sure you tuck those corners.
Okay, moving on from the eye, unless anyone's got anything else to say about the eyes.
Nope.
No, the eye looks good.
No, sweet. Her muzzle, nose, it's inconsistent stroke thickness there. It's thin at the top, thin at the bottom, but bulgy in the middle.
She just has chubby cheeks. It's okay.
Yeah. In this scenario, I would make it the same thickness from the front of her face all the way down to about her mouth, and then start slowly tapering from there.
Yeah, there's no work file with this specific submission, so we can't play with it to see what is what. If it's a line like using the line width tool, or if it's using the just like if it's a fill.
Yeah, we don't have any resource to kind of look at that. Unfortunately, we just have the PNG that we're looking through.
Oh, and I don't know if they mentioned this, but her ear tips pointed.
Yes.
Ah, yes.
I completely missed that. So good catch. The ear tip should not be pointed. Nice. It should be slightly rounded.
Like, it doesn't mean that they have to be like circular ear tips. It just means that the paths can't point right there. If you have a node there, they have to be connected paths. They have to be rounded. Inkscape, you can just click the little rounded icon, and then in Illustrator, you'd have to hold Alt and drag the bars out. But it just has to not come to a sharp point right there.
Overall, I just wanted to point out that this rarity vector is done very well. So one of the things that becomes a bit of a hard thing to critique is when vectors are not show accurate. You start getting a little bit more customized stuff, and it doesn't quite look like the show. From first glance, and absolutely as we're still looking through this is still very, very show accurate. So in that regard, you did a great job.
Her cutie mark seems a little large. I'm not sure. I don't really have a good judge for cutie mark size, but
it does look a bit too big.
It might be a bit large.
Yeah.
That's the least show accurate thing that I see.
Speaking from experience, as someone who has had to do Rarity's cutie mark, that thing is probably one of the hardest cutie marks to do. So,
I beg to differ. Have you ever tried to do Cadence's cutie mark?
No, I just stole that one off of Zoo.
It's impossible in Photoshop.
Zoo did a resource for that one, so I just stole that cutie mark.
Thank you, Zoo.
Oh, nice.
You're goth.
I didn't need to do a cutie mark when I did my cadence vector.
Yeah, I've got to say, with this rarity vector, the hair and mane and tail are very well done in terms of the shade, like the gradients. And
just one thing on the tail, there's that bit where it curves down in the top part of her tail. It's a very sharp bend. Make that a bit smoother. Drag out the bars on your handles.
Also, a tough thing to do in Illustrator is sometimes with the gradients, people try to make that first half moon there where the gradient is, just that gradient. They try to make that the shape and like connect the other ones. If you look at the very top arch of the tail, you can kind of see how that path right there, it peaks over the top, and you can kind of see that little bump, and it creates an unsmoothness in the top of the tail. You always want to make sure to hide your paths, and if you look at the middle path right below it, you can see even sharper of a bump there where that path isn't rounded, and that's the same kind of concept.
Yep.
All right, well, we're going to run out of time here, so I'm going to just quickly throw up the last part that your nostril is done a bit weird. So, have a quick nostril guide made by me. That can help you guys with your nostrils, but other than that, it's looking great. And let's move on to the final section, which is the questions section. Another section that I thought, man, not that many people are going to leave questions. It's going to be like, we're going to have to make up questions. But you guys, being as awesome as you are, left us about 1 billion questions. So, why don't we go through...
I can literally count 1 billion.
It was literally 1 billion. I counted it. It's a bit hard to go through. It took me an entire week, but...
We rounded down.
Let me go through a couple of them here, and then we'll just kind of cut it off when we're going too long. So, very first question is from a very well-known vector artist, MandyDax, and he or she writes, "What is the most important piece of advice you would give to someone who has never vectored before but wants to try?"
You use a good reference.
Oh yeah, that's golden rule number 1 is learn a good reference, especially when you're trying to learn. But my most important piece of advice would be learn the pen tool. That's going to be your greatest challenge, is learning the pen tool, learning how to line up the pen tool, what it does, how to work it, those like crooked paths, sharp paths, round paths. There's a couple pen tool tutorials around. Ask someone if how they learned. But pen tool's going to be one of your greatest challenges in learning in that. So that'd be my word of advice, is get a pen tool, get like a practice vector, and learn how to do stuff with the pen tool.
I'll point out as well, if there probably should have been point number 1, if you are looking for something to vector with, go get Inkscape. Inkscape is a very powerful, very free program. which you just download straight off the net, and it'll get you up and running very quickly. It's a lot of our vectors in our gallery and that you see around are made with Inkscape. So yeah, if you're looking for something to vector with, go and get that. There's a link in the description.
The Inkscape pen tool works just like the Adobe ones, but its user interface is only a little bit different. In Inkscape, you throw down your path and then you edit it with the point select tool, and in Adobe, you just do everything with the pen tool. So they work a little bit different in that regard.
Then go to our gallery, and there's a tutorials folder in there dedicated for Inkscape. Again, link is in the description.
Yeah, let's redo this list of the order, because I'm pretty sure the very first thing is figure out a program.
First one.
Yeah.
Second, get some tutorials from our gallery, because we have a bunch, and they're all really awesome. Including one by DarCow that's basically just like an overview of how you get started.
Yeah.
And third, then you start going to like the more complex stuff, like learn the pen tool. That's a great one. I would say, just from like a personality point of view, you kind of have to be a perfectionist, because vectoring is a perfectionist's art.
Yeah.
And you have to be open to constructive criticism, because there's so many things that you can do wrong when making a vector. You have to be okay with someone coming in and being like, hey, you did this wrong.
We're not just speaking of that like from our perspective either. Like, we all enjoy constructive criticism, and I know when like I submit something, I know like a couple of these guys will like go over my submission, and I'm glad that they do, because I want to make sure that I'm getting rid of all of the errors in mine, and to eventually get to a day where I can...
Your vectors make me angry because I can never find anything.
Yeah, I think I've finally reached the day.
I'll just flat out say your stuff's wrong.
Your vector's bad and you should feel bad.
So, Flutter Guy, you have one? Because you haven't come up with one. Do you have a fourth tip?
Yeah, I think this kind of ties into what we said last time. Try and use a color guide, because that really helps when trying to figure out colors. Oh, and yeah, feel free to ask any of us if you want to start out vectoring. Any of us or any of the admins of the group, if you want to start vectoring, basically just for a place to start, maybe a suggestion for a reference file or anything, and you can come to us.
Send us a note. Send the group a note.
Yeah, I'm definitely open if anyone needs help. I've been helping a couple people. I know Flutter Guy, you've been helping someone as well.
Let me just point out that about that group note thing, as one little thing, I would actually recommend you send personal notes to the vector inspectors themselves, because only group managers can see the vector notes.
That's right.
So, send one to one of the vector inspectors. You know, you can comment on the profile or send them a note. Or we've got a bunch of stuff out there. We've got a Steam group. We've got a bunch of stuff out there that you guys can contact us with. So feel free to ask us in the case that you want to learn.
On the color guides, user by the name of Razor1103 asked me about Kefla-Floyd's color guides and like what we think about them. I think generally we think they're pretty good. Like, they look decent. There's a few ones that have some like problematic colors, and then I think the PDF format is kind of annoying for us. But and then I gave him the link to the color guide we recommend, that imager link with all the basic colors of the ponies. And he asked if that was like the best one that we recommend or the most accurate. And as far as I know, it's the closest to show accurate that we know and use, and it's the easiest to distribute. The only colors on there that I think are problematic are sweet apple blooms colors.
Yes,
right?
apple bloom's the only color on there that's a bit weird, because the outlines are too close to the fill.
Yeah.
But yeah, the only problem that I have with Kirk-Floyd's is the fact that he has V1 colors and he has V2 colors. The V1 ones weren't done very well for vectoring, so you'll see a lot of people use that, and like we see a ton of Twilight vectors that are just incorrectly colored like that. So make sure you're getting the most updated version if you're going to use his color guides.
Yeah, he did some new color guides for web and print that are really well done and really cool, especially if you're trying to make something that's printable.
All right, well, we've kind of run out of time here, so we're going to wrap up this show. We have a ton of questions and vectors for next week and weeks going forward. Again, if you guys would like to leave more questions, more vectors, or more of whatever you want to in the comments below on the journal, feel free to. We'll kind of stockpile them and pick them up as we can. Hopefully we won't get too huge amounts, so we won't have like a 50 critique list here. But other than that, follow us on DeviantArt with our group if you aren't already somehow. Make sure to check out our Steam group. Subscribe to the channel if you want to see the video before we happen to put it up, because I will probably upload it and then put out a group journal. So there you go, you get a little sneak peek there. And other than that, anything else you guys want to talk about?
Just leave your feedback. We really appreciate all the comments that we got last time. So yeah,
It's awesome.
All right, cool. We'll see you guys next week, right?
Yeah.
Bye.
Not me, actually. I won't be
No.
in. Oh.
Right. Well, we'll talk about
Yeah.
that next week when we have super secret special guest. See you guys next week.
Bye.
Bye.